As a child, I was a child of parents in the U.S. Foreign Service. So I spent a lot of time overseas in various different countries while my father worked for the American Embassy. And so I would be in school with people from all over the world, which was an experience that I did not have in my own country. So even as a young child, I was exposed to a multitude of religions, races, nationalities, ethnicities, cultures, etc. And all of that helped to shape me as a kid and form my perspectives, which are evident in me today, which has allowed me to do the work, that I do. But coming back home to racism was very foreign to me. I did not understand it. And one time, you come home every 2 years from a foreign country. Today, when you combine my travels with my mother and father for my father's job when I was a kid, you combine that with my travels now as an adult musician performing in different countries and around my country, Slovakia is number 56 on my list of countries that I have been to. I've been to 56 different countries on 6 continents. So literally, I've seen many, many different cultures. Okay, so one time when I came home from overseas, I was at the age of 10, 1968, and I was in the 4th grade. We came home to Massachusetts in the United States. I was one of 2 black children in the entire school. There was me in 4th grade, there was a little girl in 2nd grade. So I really didn't see a lot of her, except maybe at lunchtime, something like that, I would see her. So all of my friends were white. They were 4th graders, 5th graders, like that. Many of the boys were members of the Cub Scouts, the young Boy Scouts. And they invited me to join. I said, okay. So I joined the Cub Scouts. And then one day, we had a march, a parade. I was the only black scout in this parade. And we call them den mothers, the lady who runs the troops. She let me carry the American flag with my troop as we're marching in this big parade. There's the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, some other organizations were all marching. The streets were closed, so for the parade, and people were on the sidewalks. And this town was almost 100% white. There were no black people in this parade. And so there were white people up and down the sidewalks waving and cheering. Everything was good. So I'm marching with my scouts, carrying this flag, and somewhere down the route, all of a sudden, I was getting hit with bottles and soda pop cans and rocks and debris from the street. Somebody was throwing them. And I looked over, because it was on my right-hand side. There were maybe 4 or 5 people mixed in with the crowd. I remember there being at least 2 children, maybe my age, and some adults who were throwing things. And because I was naive, I had never experienced anything like this. My first thought was, oh, those people over there do not like the Scouts. That's how naive I was. It wasn't until my den mother and my scout leaders came running, and they covered me with their bodies and escorted me out of the danger that I realized I am the only scout getting hit. And I kept saying, why? Why are they hitting me? Why are they hitting me? And all they would say is, shh, move along, Daryl, move along, it'll be okay. They never answered my question. So I'm 10 years old, and you all have been 10 years old. You know, if you have a question at age 10, you must have an answer. And if the answer does not come, then you begin to create your own answer. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's because I'm new and people are testing me. They want to see what I'm made of. I had every answer but the right answer. And when I got home, my mother and father were cleaning me up and putting Band-Aids on me and asking me, how did you fall down and get all scraped up? I told them I didn't fall down. I told them exactly what happened. And then my parents sat me down and explained to me what racism was. I had never heard the word racism. I had no idea what they were talking about, because I got along with everybody from all over the world. What is this racism thing? And these people these white people, the kids and their parents, I guess it was their parents, adults, they did not look any different to me than my white friends overseas, whether they were my little French friends, my little German friends, or my fellow Americans from the embassy, or my friends in class where I lived here, who treated me very well. So this is not possible. And you see, I did not have big brothers and sisters to learn things from. All I had were my parents. I'm an only child. So my parents got it right the first time, you understand. So I had to accept what they were saying, and my parents in the past had never lied to me. They had always told me the truth. But on this day, I did not believe them, that somebody would try to hurt me just for the color of my skin. So I thought they were lying. And not much longer after that, maybe just a little bit more than a month later, same year, 1968, on April the 4th, 1968, Martin Luther King was assassinated. And I remember it very, very clearly. Every major city in the United States, Washington, D.C., Boston, Massachusetts, my hometown, Chicago, Illinois, New York, Los Angeles, Detroit, Philadelphia, Baltimore, every city burned to the ground with fire, violence, destruction, all because of race. And it was then that I realized my parents had not lied to me. They had told me the truth, that there are people who have an issue with the color of someone's skin. And that's when I formed the question in my head, how can you hate me when you don't know me? And I wanted to find the answer. So we skip ahead a few years. I go back overseas, everything is normal. Every time I come home, there is some issue that I'm experiencing. So now I'm in the 10th grade. I'm back home. And we had a class called the POTC, which stood for Problems of the 20th Century. We had a great teacher. He would always invite different controversial speakers to our school to talk to the class. Well, on this day in 1974, I'm age 15, and my teacher had invited the head of the American Nazi Party to my school. Now, you can never do that today, but we're talking 1974, it's a different time. So this guy's name was Matt Kohl, K-O-E-H-L. The man who founded the American Nazi Party, his name was George Lincoln Rockwell. And he was a very, very vicious man, vehement racist. But he had been murdered by one of his own American Nazis. So his right-hand guy, Matt Kohl, took his place. And Matt Kohl came to my school with his assistant, Martin Kerr. And they stood in front of my class and espousing all these views of white supremacy. And Matt Kohl looked at me and pointed at another black person in the class and said, "We're going to ship you back to Africa." Then he went like this, he goes, "And all you Jews out there, you're going back to Israel." And I was 15 years old, and I'm looking at him like, what is wrong with this man? Where is he coming from? And I didn't say anything. But one of my classmates said, "What happens if they don't go?" And Matt Kohl said, "Oh, they have no choice. If they do not leave voluntarily, they will be exterminated in the upcoming race war." That was the first time I ever heard the term race war. I'm thinking, what is he talking about? And he kept saying Rahowa, Rahowa. Rahowa, R-A-H-O-W-A. It's a white supremacist term for racial holy war, Rahowa. And so I went out as a teenager. I bought all kinds of books on black supremacy, white supremacy, the Klan, the Nazis, anybody who had the ideology that their skin color gave them superiority, I want to learn about, because I want to learn, where does that come from? Because I know you're not born with that ideology. So where's it coming from? Where is it going? How can it be addressed? But I didn't find a lot of answers in the books. So now I graduated. I'm still looking for that answer. I graduated high school. I go to college. 4 years later, I graduate college with my degree in music. But I'm still trying to find the answer to my question. Well, I found out about a rally that was going to happen in Washington, D.C., which is only 20 minutes from my house, with the American Nazi Party. And this is in 1982. So I figured, okay, I'm going to go down there and check out this rally. So I drive down there. It's going to be in front of the White House, where the president lives. So it's a park across the street from the White House. I drive down there, I park my car, and I wait. And right at 12 noon, this black van comes, and about 13, 15 people get out. And they're all wearing dark black suits. There were no swastikas, no SS insignias, nothing to indicate that they're Nazis, just dark black suits. And they stood there like this. And I saw Matt Cole and Martin Kerr, the same two men who came to my high school 8 years prior. So I figured, I need to confront them. I need to find out, what are they really thinking? Because they had surprised me when I was a kid. Now I'm in 1982, I'm 24 years old. So, and I've been studying a lot about racism. So now I want to talk to them. So once they got all lined up, I got out of my car, I walked over, and I said, Matt Cole. He jumped back in the line. He says, do I know you? I said, well, you spoke at my high school. He said, what high school was that? I said, Thomas Wooten High School. He looked at me and goes, oh, yes, I remember you. That was a long time ago. I said, yes, 8 years ago. He goes, yes, I remember you. What can I do for you? I said, do you remember what you told me? He nodded his head. He said, yes. I said, well, I'm still here. He said, I can see that. What can I do for you? I said, you can tell me who the hell gives you the authority to make travel arrangements for me? And he says, what's your name? I said, Daryl Davis. He put his hand out. He shook my hand. And he held my hand in his hand, and then he was like this. He points in my face. And he says, Mr. Davis, you have to understand one thing. It is in the interest of your race, the black race, to be a strong race. And you cannot be a strong race if you're not a pure race. And you cannot be a pure race if you are miscegenating with other races. It is in the interest of my race, the Aryan race, which is what he calls the white race, the Aryan race, to also be a strong race. We cannot be a strong race if we are miscegenating with mud races like yours. We are becoming a mongrel race. So now anybody who is non-Aryan, non-white, he calls a mud race. And so he says that the white race is committing genocide by mixing with other races. So he says until the races understand they cannot mix, we cannot coexist in this country. So I talked with him some more. I thanked him for the information. I shook his hand again, and I left. Later that summer, he came back for a big rally, and there were many, many protesters that came. The police came, and a riot broke out. People got hurt, people went to jail, and all that kind of stuff. But he had police protection. So when he had police protection, he wore his Gestapo uniforms and all this, flying his flags, just trying to intimidate everybody. And it worked. So he got what he wanted. Well, I learned that. So this is 1982. 1983, country music had made a comeback in the United States. So if you wanted to work full-time as a musician, you played country music. I liked country music. It was basically blues and country are cousins. It's the same 3 chords. So I joined a country band. I'm the only black guy in the band, and usually the only black guy wherever we would play. So we went to this place called the Silver Dollar Lounge. The Silver Dollar Lounge was an all-white lounge. And when I say all-white, I don't mean that black people could not go in there. What I mean is that black people did not go in there, and that was by their choice. It was a good choice because they were not welcome. So here I am in the Silver Dollar Lounge with this band, my first time. The band had played there many times before. So we finished playing the first set. I came off the stage. I'm walking over here to go sit down with the guys in the band, and this white gentleman, maybe late 40s, comes up behind me and puts his arm around my shoulder. And I stopped, I turned around to see who's touching me, and he says, man, I really like your all's music. I said, thank you. I shook his hand. And he points at the stage. He says, I've seen this band before, but I've never seen you before. Where'd you come from? I explained to the man, I just joined this band. It's my first time here. But yes, the band has been here before. So he says, well, man, I like your piano playing. This is the first time I ever saw a black man play piano like Jerry Lee Lewis. Now, as I said earlier this afternoon, this man obviously did not know the origin of Jerry Lee Lewis's style of piano playing. For those of you who don't know Jerry Lee Lewis, perhaps, if you know rock and roll, some oldies but goodies, you might know some songs like Goodness Gracious, Great Balls of Fire, or A Whole Lot of Shaking Going On. If you think of those songs in your head, you hear all that rollicking piano, that's Jerry Lee Lewis. And that comes from black, blues, and boogie-woogie piano players. It's where Jerry Lee got it from. Well, I was explaining to this guy, and he was not believing me. No, Jerry Lee invented that. He didn't learn anything from black people. I said, yes. I said, man, I know Jerry Lee Lewis. I've known Jerry Lee Lewis, since I was a young teenager. I said, he's told me himself. The guy did not believe me. But I'll show you something here. If we can go to the folder, let's go with the bottom Jerry Lee Lewis one, yeah. There's myself and Jerry Lee Lewis, back when I was a teenager. Then, close that one out. My band played with Jerry Lee Lewis. That's him in the middle there. The guy on the end here with the white hair, that's the man who killed Elvis Presley. His name is Dr. Nick. He's the one who gave Elvis all those drugs constantly. And he became Jerry Lee Lewis's doctor. Okay, going out. And that's more recent. So Billy Joel and Jerry Lee Lewis. So anyway, we can close that out. The man did not believe me. I didn't have the pictures at the time on me to show him, but Jerry Lee has told me himself where he learned how to play. So anyway, the guy was fascinated. He wanted to buy me a drink. I go back to his table. I had some cranberry juice. And he took his glass like this, and he clinked my glass and cheered me. And he says, this is the first time I ever sat down and had a drink with a black man. And I'm thinking, what is he talking about? I'm 25 years old. I had sat down with thousands of white people and had 1,000 drinks with white people, or a meal, a beverage, a conversation. This guy had to be in his 40s. He'd never sat down with a black guy before. And innocently, because I'm not thinking, innocently I asked him, I said, why? He didn't answer me. He looked down at the table, very quiet. I said, why? And he had a friend with him. His friend said, tell him. I said, tell me. He looked back up at me, and he said, I'm a member of the Ku Klux Klan. Well, I started laughing at him, because now I did not believe him. Why would a Klansman come up to me, walk across the dance floor, and embrace me, and want to buy me a drink and hang out? It does not work that way. So I'm thinking, this guy is joking with me. And I'm laughing. He goes inside his pocket, pulls out his billfold, and hands me his Ku Klux Klan membership card. I look at this thing, ooh, this is for real. I recognize the Ku Klux Klan insignia, which is a red circle with a white cross and a red blood drop in the center. So, oh, this thing is for real. I stopped laughing, right? I gave it back to him. Now I'm thinking, why am I here? And we talked about the Klan and some other things. And he gave me his phone number. He told me to call him anytime I was to come back to the Silver Dollar Lounge with this band, because he wanted to bring his friends, his Ku Klux Klan friends, to see this black man play piano like Jerry Lee Lewis. I said, okay. So we were there every 6 weeks on the weekend. I would call him on a Wednesday or a Thursday and say, hey man, we're playing at the Silver Dollar, come on out. He'd come out, he'd bring Klansmen and Klanswomen. They'd come to watch the show. They came in regular clothes. They didn't wear their robes and hood to the job. But they'd have a table, and they'd come up by the stage and watch. And then, or they'd get out and they'd dance. But when we take a break, usually, I would go over to their table to say hello to this guy. Some of the Klan would stay there because they wanted to meet me. They were curious. Others, they see me coming, they get up and they go away. They go to the back of the room. They didn't want anything to do with me, just look at me. So, which is okay. So I would talk to the ones who were there. This went on until the end of 1983, and then I quit that band, and I went back to playing rock and roll and blues and whatever else was happening in 1984. So it occurred to me, you know what? That was my opportunity. I had not found the answer to my question that had been in my mind since the age of 10. How can you hate me when you don't even know me? Because none of my books had the answer. Nobody I talked to had the answer. Then it occurred to me, hey, there is your answer. You should ask a member of the Ku Klux Klan, because this whole organization is based upon hate, hating people who they don't even know, just because of the skin color or what they believe. So I decided all the books that I have in my library on the Ku Klux Klan were written by white authors. Obviously, a white author has an easier time getting an interview with a Klansman and sitting down talking with them than a black person, right? So I decided I want to be the first author, black author, to write a book on the Ku Klux Klan. Because there had been two black authors who wrote about the Ku Klux Klan, but not from interviewing them. Each one escaped a lynching, one in the 1930s, one in the 1940s. So I decided I want to talk face to face with somebody who would lynch me and ask them, why? How can you think of doing that to me when you don't even know me? So I decided I will contact that man, that Klansman that I met in the bar, and I will ask him to fix me up, to connect me with the Klan leader from Maryland. I live in Maryland now. I'm going to start in Maryland where I live, then I'll go around the country. I'll go up north, I'll go down south, go to the Midwest, go to the West, and I'll interview different Klan people and put it in my book. So I had to find his number. I found his number, I called it, it had been disconnected. So I had no way of contacting him. I had to track him down. It took me a little while to find him. Well, he had no phone. He had moved, changed address, no phone. But I managed to get an address on him. I had no way of letting him know that I was coming to his house because I couldn't call him. So one Sunday evening, I showed up at his apartment. I knocked on his door. Now, he hasn't seen me in a long time. He opens the door, he says, "Daryl, what are you doing here?" And he steps out into the hallway and looks up and down the hallway, right? Well, when he stepped out of his apartment, I stepped in. So he turned around, he comes back and he goes, "What's going on? What's going on? Are you still playing?" I said, yeah, I'm still playing, but listen, I need to talk to you about the Klan. He says, "The Klan?" I said, "Yeah, you're a member, right?" He told me that he had quit the Klan, a long time ago, but he was no longer, affiliated with it. I said, "Well, where is all your Klan stuff?" He says, "You mean my robe and my hood?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, they came and got it. Now, if you don't pay for it in full, they will take it away from you." But he said when they came to get it, he could not find the mask that goes over the hood. The hood is the pointed hat, then there's a mask, and which you can take off or put on, and then the robe. So he could not find the mask when they came to get it. And but he had found it, he needed to return it. I said, "Let me see it." He went to his room, he came back, he hands it to me. I'm looking at this. And I said, "Do you know Roger Kelly?" "Yeah, I know Roger. Roger was my Grand Dragon." Now let me explain to you the hierarchy of the Klan. A Grand Dragon means state leader, okay? We have 50 states in our country. And so a state leader for normal people, we call the governor. Right? In the Klan, they call him the Grand Dragon. Right? It means anybody grand means they're on the state level. All right? A national leader who oversees all the states, they call the Imperial Wizard. So Roger Kelly was the Grand Dragon for Maryland. And I decided I want to start with Roger Kelly. I don't know him, but I know who he was because I've seen him on television. I've seen him interviewed in the newspaper. So I know who he is, but I never met him. So I have this mask in my hand. I said, "Listen, you know Roger Kelly?" "Yeah, I know Roger. Roger was my Grand Dragon." I said, "Look, I want you to connect me with Mr. Kelly. I want to interview him." "Oh, no, Daryl, I can't do that." "Why not?" "Man, we both will be killed." I said, but you're not in the Klan anymore. He goes, it doesn't matter. I cannot take a black man to Roger Kelly. I said, I'll tell you what. You said that you need to return this mask. He goes, yeah. I said, give me Roger Kelly's address. I will go to his house, and I'll return the mask for you. He said, snatched that thing right out of my hand. He goes, no way. I begged and I pleaded for 20 minutes. Give me Mr. Kelly's address and phone number. Finally, he gave it to me on the condition that I not tell Mr. Kelly where I got his personal information. I said, okay. He gave me the house number, street, phone number, everything. So he made me promise, don't tell Roger Kelly. I said, okay. So then he warned me. He said, Daryl, do not go to Roger Kelly's house. Roger Kelly will kill you. You know, he tells me about another place in public where Mr. Kelly frequents. He goes there. He goes, you can find him there sometimes. So I went there one evening, but he was not there. He had been there earlier, but he had gone by the time I got there. So anyway, I had my secretary give Mr. Kelly a call. Now, my secretary is white, and I only mention that, it doesn't matter to me, but I mention it because it's important in my story. Her name is Mary. I told Mary, I said, call Mr. Kelly. I said, tell him that you're working for somebody who is writing a book on the Ku Klux Klan. Would he consent to sitting down and interviewing with your boss? Now, the reason why I wanted Mary to call him is this. I could have called him myself. I'm the one who had the phone number. But I did not want Mr. Kelly to pick up in my voice that I'm black. You could hear that in my voice and say, I'm not talking to you, click. And then my whole project would have ended before it ever got started. But I knew if Mary called him, he would know by her voice, this is a white lady. And I know the mentality. He would not automatically think this white lady on the other end of the telephone is working for a black man. That would not compute, okay? And furthermore, a black man who's writing a book about the Ku Klux Klan, because they did not exist. Mine is the first. So she said, okay, and I told her, do not tell Mr. Kelly that I'm black. I said, if he asks, go ahead and tell him, but don't give him reason to ask, because if he agrees to the meeting, he'll figure that out when he sees me, right? So she said, okay. Now, another reason is this. I did not want him to know that I was black because I figured he would reject my request. But even if he accepted my request, given the time that he would have, he may have different answers for a black interviewer than he would have for a white interviewer asking the same questions. So I wanted to make sure this was spontaneous. She understood, she called him, and he said, okay, he would sit down and do an interview. I said, all right. So we set it up for 5:15 in the afternoon on a Sunday afternoon at a motel up near the Silver Dollar Lounge where I first met the first Klansman. Mary and I got there several hours early. I gave Mary some money. I sent her down the hall to get some soda, a Coca-Cola, ginger ale, whatever, out of the machine. And then there's a big ice bucket, put the ice in there, put the soda in there to get it all cold. I wanted to be able to be hospitable, so when my guests arrived, I could offer him a cold drink. I had no idea what this man was going to do when he saw me and saw that I was black. Would he attack me? Would he say, no, I'm not talking to you, and walk away? Or would he come in my room and sit down and do the interview? But in any event, I wanted to be cordial and hospitable. So I got all the soda cold and the ice bucket put over here on the dresser. Now, the way the room just happens to be, if you people are in the hallway of the motel and the door to my room is here, you have to come in the room and turn to your right, and the room is back here. So you cannot see who is in the room until you come in and turn the corner. You know, everything is hidden until you come in. So I took the lamp off, I put the table back here. I put a chair on one side for Mr. Kelly, a chair on this side for me. And I had a bag beside me, like a little duffel bag. In my bag, I had a copy of the Bible, because the Ku Klux Klan claims to be a Christian organization. And they say that the Bible preaches racial separation. So I want to be able to pull out my Bible and say, here, Mr. Kelly, show me chapter and verse where it says in the Bible, blacks and whites must be separate. So I'm prepared. I had a cassette player. I put the cassette player in the middle of the table. I had some blank cassettes in my bag. I'm all ready, okay? Right on time, 5:15. I'm sitting down back there where you cannot see me until you come in. Mary gets up, runs around the corner, opens the door. In walks what is known as the Grand Nighthawk. Nighthawk in KLAN terminology means bodyguard, security. So a Grand Nighthawk is the bodyguard for the Grand Dragon. An Imperial Nighthawk is the bodyguard for the Imperial Wizard. So in walks this Grand Nighthawk, and he's dressed in like a military camouflage. And he has the Ku Klux Klan insignia right here, that red circle, white cross, blood drop. Over here are the letters KKK. On his little cap on his head, it said Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. And right here he had a gun, semi-automatic handgun in the holster. He comes in, Mr. Kelly is walking directly behind him in a dark blue suit and tie. And the Nighthawk turned the corner and saw me and just froze. Well, Mr. Kelly did not realize that his Nighthawk stopped, and he hit him in the back and knocked him forward. So they're stumbling, trying to regain their balance, and they're like looking all around the room like, no, something's not right. And I'm sitting there looking at them, and I can see in their faces the apprehension. They're thinking the receptionist gave them the wrong room number or something, or this is a setup, an ambush. So I stood up and I went like this to show I have nothing in my hands. And I walked forward, and I said, "Hi, Mr. Kelly, I'm Daryl Davis." He shook my hand. The Nighthawk shook my hand. So far, so good. I said, come on in. Have a seat. Mr. Kelly sat down. So far, so good, right? The Nighthawk stood at attention to his right side, right? So before I could sit down on this side, because Mr. Kelly's right here, and the Nighthawk's right there, before I could sit down here, Mr. Kelly says, "Mr. Davis, do you have any form of identification?" I said, "Sure." I gave him my driver's license. He goes, "Oh, you live on Flat Street in Silver Spring." Now that had me concerned. Why is he reading my address? All he has to do is look at my picture, look at my name, look at me, make sure that's me, and give me back my license. Now he's looking at my address. What's he gonna do? Come to my house and burn a cross? I don't want any of that, right? But so I did not want to let him know that he had concerned me. But I want to let him know, do not come to my house and do anything stupid. So I said to him, "Yes, Mr. Kelly, that is where I live. And you live at," and I said his house number and his street. And I was letting him, I leveled the playing field. I was letting him know, you know where I live, I know where you live. So if you come visit me, I might come visit you. And if I come visit you, I'm bringing the police, right? So he smiled, he nodded his head like he understood. I did not realize that day. It was many, many months later, I realized why he said my street. He recognized my street. One of his Klan members lived down the road from my house. I didn't know that. So Mr. Kelly would have to drive down my street to get to that guy's house. So it was just pure coincidence. He recognized the street. And today, that same Klan member is in prison. He will be there for a very, very long time. He committed a very bad hate crime, so he went to prison. But I had no way of knowing all that, before. So we started this interview. Within 5-10 minutes, Mr. Kelly let me know that he did not like me. I am inferior. Black people have smaller brains than white people. We are lazy, we don't want to work, we are prone to criminal behavior, we engage in selling drugs, and every stereotype you ever heard, I heard all that day. And so I was not there to fight with him, I was there to learn from him. How can you hate me when you don't know me? So, you have to just, brace yourself, let him get everything out. It's very offensive, it's very hurtful, but he's in the Klan, so what do you expect, right? So, you sit there and you listen. So, and if there's something, that I disagreed with, I would challenge him, but I would not be rude or violent or start yelling at him, no. I'd just say, "Hey, look, can you explain that to me?" Or if he would say, "Mr. Davis, the Bible says," I'd reach down, get my Bible, say, "Here, show me, please, chapter and verse where it says this." Or if my cassette ran out of tape, out of time, I'd get down, get a new cassette, put it in. Every time I reached like this, the Nighthawk reached like this. And after a while, he realized there was no threat in the bag. And he remained still. I went in and out of the bag, no problem. A little over an hour into this interview, there was a strange noise in the room, kind of, and we all jumped. Mr. Kelly is right here, I'm right here. Now, the table was smaller than this. And I came up out of my seat, and I went like this, because I was going to jump across the table. You know, I knew that Mr. Kelly had made that noise. I did not know what the noise was. And I knew that he made it because I didn't make it. So if I didn't make it, he had to have made it. You know, process of elimination, right? So because I did not understand the noise, I perceived it to be an ominous, a threatening noise. And my mind is racing. What did I say? What did I just do to cause Mr. Kelly to make some bizarre noise? And I could hear the voice of that former Klansman, Daryl, do not fool with Roger Kelly. Roger Kelly will kill you. So I feared for my life. I had gone into what you call survival mode. When you fear for your life, you will go into survival mode. You will do whatever you have to do to survive the fear. People will do one of four things. There are only four things you can do, okay? And you will do one of those. Some people, depending upon how their nerves are, if the fear is so great, they pass out, they faint, they fall down and faint because the fear is too shocking. I don't faint, okay? Another thing people will do, they tense up and they start shaking like this. And you can take a stick or a rock and hit them on the head. They will not do this. They will not block the blow. Like this. That is called paralysis by fear. They become paralyzed because they're so afraid to move, all the muscles tighten up and lock. That's paralysis by fear. I don't do that either. The third thing people will do is to run away. That is your best option, okay? To put as much distance between yourself and the source of your fear as quickly as you can. Run away, okay? That's your best option. However, and I would have done that, but that was not an option for me because you cannot outrun a bullet in a motel room. You know, where are you going to run inside a motel room? So the next option is to attack them. Attack them before they attack you. That's called a preemptive strike. All right, to put down the source of the threat. Stop it before it goes away. So I came up, and I was going to come across that table. I was going to grab Mr. Kelly, grab the bodyguard, the Nighthawk, and slam them down to the ground and take away the Nighthawk's gun. I did not have a weapon. My secretary did not have a weapon. The only person that I knew for sure who had a weapon was the Nighthawk because you could see it on his hip. I did not know if Mr. Kelly had a gun under his jacket or not, but I was not going to take any chances. I was going to grab him, grab the Nighthawk, and just boom, and search them and take away the Nighthawk's gun. But when I came up and hit the table, I'm looking into Mr. Kelly's eyes. My eyes locked with his eyes. I didn't say a word. My eyes were speaking loud and clear. I knew that he could read my eyes. In fact, my eyes were shouting. My eyes were shouting so loud he could hear my eyes. My eyes were asking him, what did you just do? His eyes had locked with my eyes. He didn't say a word, but I could read his eyes like telepathy. His eyes were saying to me, what did you just do? And the Nighthawk was like this, looking at both of us like, what did either one of y'all just do? Well, Mary, she's over here sitting on top of the dresser because there are no more chairs. She realized what had happened, and she was explaining it to us when it happened again. The ice in the ice bucket melted, and the cans of soda fell down the ice, and that's what made the noise. And we all began laughing, all of us. We began laughing at how ignorant we all had been. Yes, we're enemies. He's the head of the Klan, I'm a black guy. But we're in the same motel room, at the same table, having a conversation. We agreed on some things, we disagreed on other things, but at least we were talking, you know? And this was a lesson. This was a lesson that was taught that day. I won't say that it was learned that day, but it was taught that day. And the lesson taught is this: all because some foreign, and underline the word foreign, highlight it, circle it, whatever, all because some foreign entity of which we were ignorant, that being the bucket of ice, Kansas soda, entered into our little comfort zone by way of the noise that it made, and we didn't know, we became fearful and accusatory of each other. The lesson taught is ignorance breeds fear. All right? If you don't keep that fear in check, that fear becomes hatred. We fear those things we don't understand. If you don't keep that fear in check, that fear becomes hatred because we hate those things that frighten us. If you don't keep that hatred in check, that hatred becomes destruction. We want to destroy those things that we hate because we fear them, and they may have been harmless. So we saw the whole chain almost go to completion. Completion would have been the last component, the destruction, had the man taken out his gun and shot somebody, namely me or my secretary, because it's his job to protect himself and protect his boss, the Grand Dragon. Or had I jumped across the table and hurt one of them, because it's my job to protect me and protect my secretary. So fortunately, it stopped short of that. But in my country, we saw that whole chain go from beginning to completion of several months back in August of last year, August 12th, 2017. The Ku Klux Klan and the neo-Nazis came to a little town 2 hours from my house called Charlottesville, Virginia. And they had a big riot, and one of the white supremacists got inside his car. He drove his car through the crowd of protesters, tried to kill as many people as he could. He injured 20 people and murdered one girl, ran her over with the car. Her name was Heather Heyer, 19-year-old girl. So there was a lot of ignorance in Charlottesville, a lot of fear, a lot of hatred, and it ended in destruction. And right now, that man is on trial for his life. So, in fact, I'm going to the trial. It's 9th, 10th, 11th of May. So I know some of the Klan, I know some of the neo-Nazis, I know the man who organized that rally. So I will be down there to watch the judge put them in prison. But anyway, you know, we have to address the source of this. And as I said earlier this afternoon, the source of this is the ignorance. You know, don't worry about the symptoms. If you go to the source and you fix the source, you won't have the symptoms. You address the ignorance with education. You enlighten people, and then there's nothing for them to fear. If there's nothing to fear, there's nothing to hate. If there's nothing to hate, there's nothing that you want to destroy, okay? So we carried on with this conversation. There were no more problems. I went in and out of the bag. The bodyguard did not move. At the end, I thanked Mr. Kelly for his time. He wished me good luck. He shook my hand. He gave me his Klan card, and he said, keep in touch. I'm thinking, what? I didn't come here to make friends with the Klan. I came here to find out, how can you hate me when you don't know me? I didn't say that to him, but I was very cordial. I said, thank you, Mr. Kelly. I said, I will give you a call when my book is ready for publication. Thank you very much. I have other Klan people around the country I want to go interview. He said, okay, thank you. He wished me good luck, and he left. On the way home, I said to Mary, I said, you know, I like Roger Kelly. Her head almost hit the ceiling of my car. She goes, what do you mean you like him? He doesn't like you. I said, I know. She goes, what do you like about him? I said, I don't like what Roger Kelly stands for, but I like him as a person. We have more in common than we do in contrast. Most of what we had in contrast revolved around race. He felt his race is superior to my race. I'm inferior. I feel mine is equal to his. He felt the races had to be apart. I felt they could be together. I felt that we all are one race. the human race. He feels, no, we're two different races. So other than race, we had a lot in common. So I said, I will stay in touch with him. So I would call him whenever I had a job, a music performance up near his county. He lives about an hour and a half from my house. So if I was playing in that area, I'd call him and say, hey man, I'm playing, wherever, come out and see me. He'd come. He'd bring his Nighthawk, but he'd come, he'd watch me play, he'd get out and dance, on the dance floor. And then if sometimes I would invite him down to my house. He would come to my house with his Nighthawk. He would sit on my couch, on my sofa, right? The Nighthawk would sit next to him. Sometimes the Nighthawk would take out his gun and twirl it on his finger like this while Mr. Kelly and I are talking. And sometimes I would invite over some of my other black friends, some of my white friends, some of my Jewish friends, just to engage Mr. Kelly in conversation with someone other than me. I did not want him to think that, well, Daryl is an exception. No, I want you to talk to other people. Just, get to know them. And so, we would do that. We would even eat at my dining room table, have lunch or dinner, or we would go out and eat. Now here I am, I'm inferior, right? So he is in my inferior house, sitting on my inferior sofa, eating my inferior food at my inferior dining room table, the head of the Ku Klux Klan, right? So this went on for 2 years. He did not invite me to his house, okay? In fact, whenever I had to do something up in his area, if I had to run an errand, I'd call him and say, hey, what are you doing? He'd say, nothing. I said, well, come go with me to run this errand. I want to drop off a CD or a music contract somewhere up there. He'd say, okay, I'll meet you wherever. He always wanted to meet me somewhere. He didn't want me to come to his house and pick him up. So I'd go and meet him, he'd get in my car, then the Nighthawk would get in my car, and we go. Well, this went on for 2 years. He never invited me to his house. But by the end of 2 years, Roger Kelly was coming to my house by himself, no Nighthawk. He trusted me that much, that he was safe. So after 2 years, Roger Kelly got promoted from state leader, Grand Dragon, to Imperial Wizard, national leader. He began inviting me to his house. I would go to his house, I would see his Klan meeting room, I'd take pictures, take more notes from my book, and then he would invite me to Klan rallies. And I'd go to these Klan rallies that have this big 20, 30-foot wooden cross, that's wrapped up in burlap. And the burlap has been soaked. They call it Klan cologne, but it's actually diesel fuel, kerosene. And they have all these different Klansmen and Klanswomen in their robes and hoods, have a big circle, and they have torches with fire, and they parade around the cross, go around, and then the leader says, Klansmen, halt, and they all stop. And he says, for my God, and they all say, for my God, for my race, for my race, for my country, for my country, for my Klan, for my Klan. Klansmen approach the cross, and they all close in to the foot of the cross. Klansmen light the cross. They throw their fire down at the foot, and whoosh, this big cross is on fire. And they stand around, they look at it, and then they give some speeches and talk about how great the white race is and what they're going to do and so forth and so on. So I take pictures, take some more notes. Now, nobody bothered me. Some people did not like me being there because I'm black and I'm at a Klan rally, all right? But Roger Kelly is the Imperial Wizard. If he says it's okay, then you better not do anything or he will take you out, all right? So if I'm okay with him, then I have to be okay with them. So he invited me. So I was safe. So anyway, I take some more notes. Well, CNN, you all have CNN here? Okay. They knew who I was through music because I played piano with Chuck Berry. And so they knew who I was in music. They knew who Roger Kelly was through the Klan. And they heard rumors about a black musician getting together with a Klan leader. And they wanted to do a story. So they called me and said, hey, is this true? And I said, yeah. And they said, can we do a story? I said, okay. So they said, when is the next time you're going to a Klan rally? I said, I'll call you. When I'm invited, I'll call you, let you know. Said, okay. So the opportunity came that summer. I called CNN. I said, I'm going to a Klan rally on Saturday, whatever the date was. And they said, okay, we want to go. We want to follow you to the Klan rally. Are you and your band performing anywhere Friday night? I said, yes. So they wanted to come to the club where we were playing on Friday and film the band to show what I normally do for a living. And then they can show what I do for a hobby. Well, so they came to my gig, they filmed the music, and then Saturday morning they came to my house, CNN, and they followed me 2 hours up the road to this Klan rally and in the afternoon. And they said, do you think Roger Kelly, the Imperial Wizard, will even talk to us? I said, I'll do better than that. When the rally is over, I will talk with Mr. Kelly, and I will get him to come back to my house. And you can interview the head of the Ku Klux Klan inside a black man's house. I said, oh, okay. So when the rally was over, I approached Roger Kelly, and I said, look, man, I told him what was going on. And he said, yeah, he come back to my house. Roger Kelly drove 2 hours out of his way, no Nighthawk, down to Silver Spring, Maryland, to my house, and sat in my basement and interviewed with CNN. And this clip was shown on CNN every hour for 24 hours all over the world. And I'm going to show it to you right now, but I want you to pay attention to what Roger Kelly says. He says that even though he and I would do different things together, it did not change his view on the Klan, because his views on the Klan had been cemented in his mind for years. And then he goes on to say how he believes in separation of the races, because he thinks that is in the best interest of all races. Almost word for word what Matt Cole told me many years ago from the American Nazi Party. All right? So he says all that. So I want you to listen to that. And then listen to what he says about respect. Very interesting. It's another teaching moment. Maybe not a learning moment, but a teaching moment. And then listen to what the two CNN reporters at the desk, listen to their commentary. Okay, so we can do the, it's on the desk. Yeah, that's the one.
Look at us. And two men in the Washington area are showing that even an African-American man and a member of the Ku Klux Klan can find common ground. CNN's Carl Rochelle report.
Daryl Davis plays a hot piano. It's part of the show, and it makes him stand out. He also stands out here. Davis is one of the few African-Americans you will ever find attending a KKK rally. More than attending, he is welcome. It's been a tough day for the Klan. Their Maryland rally found many local residents rejecting the message of white separatism. After it's over, Daryl Davis hangs around backstage with his friend, Klan wizard Roger Kelly. It's not unusual for blacks and whites to be friends, but it is unusual to find a black man and a Klan leader chatting pleasantly over an orange soda after a Klan rally. The relationship started over a book Davis was writing. His secretary set up an interview with Roger Kelly, but didn't tell him Davis was black. They talked and talked some more. Davis learning about the Klan, Kelly learning about Davis.
We get to know one another, we do different things, It hasn't changed my views about the Klan, because my views on the Klan's been pretty much cemented in my mind for years.
Kelly and his Klan friends go to hear Davis and his band. And Davis goes to their rally.
I sat on the front row and listened to each Klansman speak. Some things I agree with, other things I do not agree with.
Davis thinks that his presence promotes badly needed understanding.
Hates them, I believe, from fear. The fear of the unknown. And I think this is all across the board, regardless of whether it's the Klansman or anything else.
But he has no illusions about the Klan. If he did, his friend would be quick to disabuse him.
And I believe in separation of the races. I believe that's in the best interest of all races.
Does he really? Or has friendship transcended the color barrier? Listen to Kelly at a Klan rally.
I'm a far-right man and hell back, because I believe in what he stands for, he believes in what I stand for. A lot of times we don't agree with everything, but at least he respects me to sit down and listen to me. And I respect him to sit down and listen to him.
The strange relationship of a KKK wizard and his black buddy. In Washington, I'm Carl Rochelle, CNN Sunday Morning.
Strange. Good adjective, strange.
Certainly not.
Okay. So, oh, thank you.
Did you say something like black, white man?
He,
Could hear it there.
he said that he had more respect for me. He says, I have more respect for that black man than I do you white niggers out there.
Oh, white niggers.
Yeah.
White niggers.
So he's trying to insult them. But so you heard Mr. Kelly say that even though he and I would do different things together, it did not change his views on the Klan. Because his views on the Klan were what? Cemented in his mind for years. And he said he believes in separation of the races because he thinks that is in the best interest of all races. But did you hear him say towards the end that he respected me? The Imperial Wizard, the head of the Ku Klux Klan, said he respected me. I will quote him. He said, "We may not agree on everything, but at least he respects me to sit down and listen to me, and I respect him to sit down and listen to him." Those were his words. Very, very important. If you don't take anything else home with you after this weekend, take that home with you, those words, okay? If you have an adversary, an opponent, I don't care how extreme they may be, give them a platform. Allow them to air their views. You know, they may be so extreme it cuts you to the bone. And trust me, I've been to Klan rallies. I was at a Klan rally a few months ago out in Missouri, okay? And I would hear things that cut me to the bone, all right? But that's okay. Give your opponent a platform. Allow them to air their views. If you agree with them, no problem. If you don't agree with them, still no problem. But you challenge them. You don't challenge them rudely or violently. You say, look, I need more clarification as to why you think I should believe the way you believe. Give me a little more explanation. When you do things like that, there is an excellent chance that they will reciprocate. They will explain to you why they think they are right and you should believe this, but then they'll give you a chance to provide your platform. You make sure that you have done your homework, so you have all your facts together, so that you can present your platform in an intelligent and influential manner. Because at the end of the day, you each must think about what the other person said. And if somebody says something to you that goes against what you have believed from day one to however old you may be today, but you think, you know, a little spark happens, and you think, she does have a point there. You might begin leaning in that direction, all right? So it's very important that we learn to talk with each other, not at each other, not about each other, but talk with each other. And understand something. I did not respect what Roger Kelly had to say. I am not a racist. I'm not a supremacist. I'm not a separatist. I'm not a nationalist. I did not respect what he had to say. But I respected his right to say it. You understand the difference? Okay. So we would continue these conversations. Sometimes he and I would get together, we go out and have dinner. Sometimes we talk about the Klan. Sometimes we never even talk about the Klan. We talk about the latest James Bond movie or whatever, just something, you know, something different. So we would listen to each other. Again, he said, we may not agree on everything, but at least he respects me to sit down and listen to me, and I respect him to sit down and listen to him. Those were his words, very important, okay? Apply that. Because over time, the more conversations we had, Mr. Kelly began thinking. His cement that was holding that ideology together in his head, it began to get cracks in it. because the things I was saying were more true than what he believed. So his cement was cracking, and he was struggling because he had believed this all his life. And now he's questioning, do I go with what I know to be true, or do I live a lie? And finally, a few years back, that cement just crumbled and fell apart. And Mr. Kelly quit the Ku Klux Klan. Today, Mr. Kelly no longer believes in what he said in that video. When Mr. Kelly left the Klan, he gave me his robe and hood. This is the Klan robe of the Imperial Wizard, the same robe you saw him wearing in the video. This is the symbol all Klan people use. Okay, it's called a blood drop emblem or a mayoke. All right? And of course, this is called the hood or the helmet, either name.
Make a picture of you.
Sure, go ahead. This is, I won't put it on for you, but I'll let you.
No, we need to recognize it.
Yeah. This is the hood or the helmet. This is the mask. Members who want anonymity, they don't want you to know who they are, they wear this mask and they look at you through these eyelets. So they see you, you don't see them. If they don't care that you know who they are, the mask has 3 snaps or Velcro. Just undo the mask and the face is exposed under the hood. And you saw both types in the video, some with their faces covered, some with their faces exposed. So this was his badge of honor, his uniform. Because he no longer believes in the hatred and violence that this represents, he shed not only his ideology, but his uniform. So now I own this. I have a lot of these at home, okay, a lot of them, from different members who are active. It comes as a result of talking with each other, not fighting, okay? Not everybody is going to give that up. As I said before this afternoon, there will be people who will go to their grave being hateful and violent and believing in that. But what did I say I majored in college? What's my profession? Music, okay? I'm just a rock and roll piano player. I'm not a sociologist or psychologist. Maybe I should have been because I make more money than I do playing music. But I like music, okay? But if I can do that, if I can sit down and talk with someone, everybody in here can do that. It does no good to form a group of like-minded people and then not invite somebody of the opposite mind to come talk to your group. Because if everybody in here believes the same thing, and every week you get together and talk about how bad this is, what are you accomplishing? Nothing. Because she believes the same thing I believe. I'm not telling her anything that she doesn't already know. And then you say, well, there's a racist over there, or there is somebody who's anti-Muslim over there, or anti-Semitic, or whatever. Let's invite him to our meeting. Oh, no, we can't have him over here. He's crazy. No, you need him over here so you can understand why he thinks that way, okay? Once you learn why he fears or why he thinks, then you can address a solution to bring him around. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens over time, all right? I did not convert Roger Kelly. Roger Kelly converted himself, okay? I was the impetus. I was the influence. If you see me in the news and headlines, it's always sensational. Black musician converts 200 Klan members. No, I did not convert one. Yes, 200 have left because of me. I was the impetus, okay? I started the conversation. I gave them things to think about. And they came to their own conclusion, I might be wrong. Maybe I need to get rid of this. So that's why I have these things. Now, the 2 CNN reporters, they implied that I was strange. Well, I'll tell you what. If being strange causes people to give up this, we all need to be strange, okay? So Thank you. It bothers me a great deal as an American, and don't get me wrong, I love my country. I'm very patriotic, but it bothers me a great deal that all too often we claim to be the greatest country in the world. Perhaps technologically we are. I will argue with anybody. We, Americans, put a man on the moon. We invented that technology. We put him on the moon, we brought him back safely. And while Neil Armstrong was on the moon walking around, we were talking to him live from Earth all the way to the moon via satellite radio phone. We invented that technology. Everybody in here has a cell phone. Everybody in here has email. You hit a few numbers, hit a few words, hit send. You're talking to people right next door in Austria, Australia, China, Africa, America, wherever you want to talk. We invented that technology. So how is it that in America, we can talk to people as far away as the moon or anywhere on the face of this planet, but yet so many of us have difficulty talking with the person who lives right next door or across the street? It seems to me that before we can call ourselves the greatest, our ideology needs to catch up to our technology. And when we have them both up there, then we can truly brag about how great we are. We are living in the 21st century. This does not belong in the 21st century. This does not belong in any century, but not the 21st. We are in the digital age. We are living in space age times. But yet there's so many of us still thinking with Stone Age minds. So, as I said, as a piano player, if I can do this, anybody can do this. So, this one Klansman that I know, he was murdered. And he was an Imperial wizard. He had the largest Klan group in the country, in the States. His name was Frank Ancona. He was murdered, and I knew him very well. And had he lived, I would say probably about another year he would have been out of the Klan, because he and I were getting very tight. So I went to his funeral, and I participated in his funeral with the Klan, because they knew how much he liked me, and I liked him. So at the end, well, let me show you him. Go to, right, yeah, that one. Okay, that's Frank Ancona right there in his purple imperial robe. Okay, so at the funeral, I told his right-hand man, who's now in his place, in charge, at the funeral, I said, I want Frank's robe. I want you to give it to me because Frank and I were friends, and I want that robe. I'm going to have a museum one day. So if you go down to robe right there, that's him giving me the robe. So now I got that robe at my house. And then last year, the Klan invited me to come down to Kentucky to speak to them, like I'm speaking to you all. Try to understand that, okay? They wanted me to come give a lecture to them. So I went down there, and you go down to that one, TAK group. There you go. You see me in the back, the guy put his arm around my shoulder. Okay? And another group wants me to come speak to them in September in South Dakota. So now not everybody will talk to me. As I told you, there's some who hate me. You can go on YouTube and find them cursing me and all kinds of stuff. But then there are those who will talk. Since that picture was taken, I've already got 3 of those robes. Okay? So it just keeps happening. But there are risks and things like that. But it requires conversation. All right? Now, real quick, how many of you all like rock and roll? Anybody? A few people. Okay. Huh?
We want to hear you play.
You want to hear me play? Okay, well, I got some of the original rock and rollers here. Let me tell you something about rock and roll. Rock and roll is very undercredited in my country. Rock and roll is as important as Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, and many of the great civil rights leaders, okay? You know, we had these laws in my country where concert halls, venues where you play music or whatever, they were segregated. If they allowed black people in at all, there were ropes that went around the chairs with signs hanging off that said, seating for white patrons only, colored seating only. So if this lady right here and I wanted to go see Benny Goodman or Glenn Miller or whoever, Tommy Dorsey, Frank Sinatra, we could not go together. We could not sit together. She had to sit in the white section. I had to sit in the black section. You all have seen the pictures of a colored drinking fountain, colored restroom, all that kind of stuff. Okay? Same thing with the music halls. That was the law. If she and I sat together, we both would be in jail. We'd be arrested. Okay? So when you went to see Frank Sinatra or Nat King Cole or whoever, you sat in your section. And most people abided by the law. They didn't want to go to jail. So everything was cool. But in the 1950s, two phenomenons happened. Chuck Berry invented rock and roll. That's number one. Okay? People like Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Fats Domino, Bo Diddley invented this new genre of music that had a backbeat. Boom, boom, bop, boom, bop, boom, boom, bop. Okay? Before everything was swing. All right? And then people like Elvis Presley, Jerry Lee Lewis, Carl Perkins, Buddy Holly, Bill Haley and the Comets, Gene Vincent, many others, they popularized this music. All right? White kids went crazy over this music. There's one of them right there. That's my partner, Al Cook here, great guitar player. You're going to hear him later on tonight, okay? He's been playing blues and rock and roll ever since. But because white kids got tired of hearing their parents' music, they wanted something new, something different. So they began listening to that black music, all right? And here's a white man, Elvis Presley, another white man, Jerry Lee Lewis, playing that black music. So the white establishment did not like those people. They kicked Elvis off of TV because he was dancing like a black man doing all this stuff, right? They threw him off of TV. The demand was so high, they had to bring him back. But when they brought him back on TV, they only filmed him from here up. They didn't show his legs, okay? Because it was too sensual, all right? By those standards in the 1950s. Today it's crazy, right? But anyway, so this is actual 1950s news footage, all right? Not just in the South of America, but all over the North too. This is the mayor of Jersey City, New Jersey. He is banning rock and roll from coming to the town because he heard about the incidents. He didn't want the dynamite to go off. The dynamite means race mixing, black kids and white kids dancing together. Because what would happen would be when Elvis or Chuck or somebody came out on stage playing that new rhythm, that new beat, black kids and white kids could not sit still. They got up and started dancing and knocking over the signs, and they're dancing together for the first time in American history. The first time. That's why people did not like rock and roll, because it caused black people and white people to dance together, kids. So while adults like Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks and many other black and white adults were having marches, demonstrations, boycotts, sit-ins, protests to bring white adults and black adults together, these rock and roll people were achieving that with black kids and white kids through their music. So they tried to ban rock and roll. So let's watch this 1950s news footage. Oh.
Set up a 20-man committee to do away with this vulgar, animalistic, nigger rock and roll bop. the obscenity and vulgarity of the rock and roll music is obviously a means by which the white man and his children can be driven to the level with a nigger. It is obviously nigger music.
Well, John, it's our feeling here in Jersey City that this rock and roll rhythm is filled with dynamite, and we don't want the dynamite to go off in the Roosevelt Stadium in Jersey City. After we heard about the incidents throughout the country and the coming of this concert to Jersey City, I asked our Commissioner of Public Safety, Lawrence Whipple, to look into the matter, and he did make a survey of the situation.
My department made a very thorough investigation of these so-called programs. We had telephone conversations and correspondence with various municipalities, included among these being Hartford, Connecticut, Orange, New Jersey, Asbury Park, and the city of Hoboken. And we find that these programs are not for the good of the community, and that's why I ordered them banned.
He ordered them banned rock and roll concerts from coming to the city because they're not for the good of the community. They cause black kids and white kids to dance together, okay? That's how it was. So there, that's why people, the older people did not like people like Elvis and Jerry Lee Lewis and Little Richard and all these other kind of people. So, but you can't stop rock and roll. It's impossible. Rock and roll is like a train. You just can't stop it. Okay, so this is the man who invented rock and roll. I had the great pleasure of playing with him, playing piano for him for 32 years. Not every concert, but many of them. And he passed away last year at the age of 90. Charles Edward Anderson Berry, better known to most of you as Chuck Berry. And this is an early clip from I think 1981, 1982, back when I was slim and trim and I had hair on my head, Okay.
In the beginning, there was Chuck Berry, in the beginning of rock and roll, that is. The legend of rockin' and rollin' was in town tonight doing his thing at Harbor Lights, and Denise Cope, the world's oldest living teeny bopper, was just down there.
I must be, because he still does something to me, I tell you.
True.
Well, he was there when rock and roll was born in 1955, and every rock musician since then has had Chuck Berry to thank. Maybelline, Roll Over Beethoven, Sweet Little 16, and Johnny B. Good.
He can play the guitar like ringing a bell. Go, 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 go. I say go. I say go. Johnny be good.
Now, 1,700 Chuck Berry fans were in rock and roll heaven tonight, and they come in all sizes, all ages.
For 25 years or more, I've loved the man. Old guy like him getting down.
Remember the duck walk?
I love Chuck Berry. I like to play, and I had to bring my pop down here tonight. That was it.
At one time, Chuck's backup band was Bruce Springsteen and Company. Tonight, they were local musicians jamming with the king.
He'll play a lick, and then I'll imitate his lick.
And these are things that you don't plan.
Right. All spontaneous. That's rock and roll, though.
God loved Chuck Berry, because if it wasn't for him, there wouldn't be rock and roll today.
You said it.
Okay, so, when we honor the great civil rights leaders, we should not forget people like Elvis Presley and Chuck Berry and Jerry Lee Lewis and Little Richard and these great rock and rollers who dared to be different, who dared to play something that would cause young people to come together, and get to know one another. Because I'm going to tell you something. You think about this. You think about this very carefully. People, their parents, those kids who got out of their chairs and began dancing together, their parents never would have approved that. Never. Okay? But it was these kids who did that. And then when they, they figured after that experience, these black kids or these white kids are no different than I am. We're the same. They began to see that. And when they grew up and they had children of their own, they did not teach their children what their parents had taught them. It was their children who many years later would vote for a black man like Obama to be in our White House. Rock and roll calls that. I'm not joking. I'm being serious. Okay, any questions? Yes, ma'am. Sure. You never had a mirror in your house? No, I'm only kidding.
The thing is, I lived in a black neighborhood, and all of a sudden, I really felt like I felt my race. I never
Yeah.
felt that before. But and throughout my life there, I kind of felt like the race relations are still a huge issue, even though you don't have those 1950s clips anymore.
Right, right.
But it's somehow, I mean, my friends, my black friends, still have their white friends or their sisters who can imitate white accents, call offices.
Right. Right.
Something
No, it's not cured.
So I'm just wondering, and then you have Obama, now you have Trump. So I'm just wondering, like, how do you reflect just the current state of race relations in the U.S.? Not, forgetting the Ku Klux Klan,
Mm-hmm.
but those people who are afraid to say the word black instead of they keep saying African American as black or something negative.
Mm-hmm. Well, wait a minute, hold on. See, I don't consider black negative. Now, I cannot speak. Yes. Now, I will tell you. To me, okay, you never heard me use the word African American today. I kept using the word black. Okay. To me, the word black, the word Negro, the word colored are all acceptable to me, but I don't speak for every person. Okay. There are plenty of African Americans, as you call them, who would be offended if you call them Negro or colored or black. All right. But that's something that they have to work out, because those terms were acceptable at one time by us. All right, you have the National Negro Baseball League, the United Negro College Fund, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP. Okay, those were terms that we created, and we were okay with them. I don't have a problem with them. I do have a problem with the term African American, and I'll tell you why. Because when I've been in my country for 400 years, I am an American. I came there as a slave many hundreds of years ago, all right? But I'm an American. White people there don't call themselves Euro-Americans, all right? But if you want to be, where are you from?
I'm from the Czech Republic.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you something, and you may believe me or disbelieve me, but every American in my country, I don't care what color they are all African American, because the first form of human race came from Africa. So you are African Czech. Okay? So to me, an African American is somebody who came there last year and became naturalized, and they're American. Just like, if you came from Czech this year and you were there for a couple years, you became American, you'd be a Czech American. But then your children would be American or whatever. So, I think that term tends to polarize people.
But I mean, I was actually most of my black friends. They kind of share your view. They don't like being called African American.
Right.
Because of exactly the same reasons you just gave. My question was more around, like, how do you see, the current state of?
Yeah. Well, the current state, because of our current presidency, our administration. Okay, I think this is the best thing that's happened to my country, because he is causing people to form these groups and talk. The women's movement, racial discussions, things like this are now taking place in the United States, where they should have taken place many decades ago. But because of the things that he's doing by insulting everybody, insulting Mexicans, insulting Muslims, insulting black people, people are coming together and say, hey, you know what? We need to lift the taboo and have these discussions. So that's a good thing. Everything starts with dialogue, because people are not born racist. We learn racism. We learn anti-Semitism. We learn anti-Muslim through dialogue. People teach it to us by talking to us. So if they can teach it to us through dialogue, we can also unlearn it through dialogue. Dialogue is the key. Couple last questions. Yes.
Sir, I would like to thank something that you said that, not everyone will leave Ku Klux Klan.
Correct.
I know on my field that many people will die by overdose, by keeping on using drugs.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that I do not have aim and mission to do my everyday work. So I just want to thank you for your message.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing your story earlier. I listened very intently to that. Congratulations on your sobriety.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
I'm just very much interested. I'm young from Hungarian. When these people, this Ku Klux Klan group invite you, what are you talking about to them?
What do we talk about when we meet?
Yeah, when you are there in the group and there are 20 people and wanting to listen to you.
I talk about everything that I just told everybody here. I said the same thing. I don't hold anything back. They may not like what I say, but I tell the truth. Okay? They at the end of the day, they are human beings. So we can find topics upon which we can relate. So we talk about that, but we also talk about the issues. And I express my feelings, why I think they're wrong, and they tell me why they think I'm wrong. But we start with that respect, like you said. He may not agree with everything I say, but at least he respects me to sit down and listen to me, and I respect him to sit down and listen to him. Without that listening, I never would have had this. Well, see, here's your problem, okay? You are a rational man. You are looking for rationale in the KKK. There is no rationale, okay? Because, these people are, to be a racist is to be irrational. So if you're going to be irrational, you might as well do other irrational things, like sit down and have dinner with a black man. Yeah. I'm serious. There's no rationale.
Yeah, for example, sewing this dress for me is also irrational.
Yeah.
That somebody sitting at home and sewing costume for me.
Somebody asked me if I ever tried this on or my other robes. I know you all are curious. You all sitting there, I wonder if you ever put it on. I'll be honest, yes, of course. If you had it, you try it on too, okay? I'm being honest, okay? So I put it on. I went to the mirror, looked at myself, see if I felt powerful. I looked stupid, so I took it off. Yes?
First of all, completely agree with, everything you said in terms of you need to listen to understand the other side and have that respect. But what I can't get my head around is I'm assuming, tell me if I'm wrong, that these guys who are still in their robes, that some of them would still be actively engaged in violence or lynching or this kind of thing. Like, how can you personally get past that to talk to them? I understand they're trying to understand them, but when it comes to the physical violence that you could be in danger of, or your family, or...
How you know they're not in danger of me?
All right, good point.
Because, they feared also. They fear also. And one time, I was going to go to a meeting with this Klansman, and he was a Klan leader, and he was a very dangerous one. And another Klan person from another Klan group said, Daryl, don't go. He will hurt you. And I said, look, I have to go because I have to interview him. I want him in my book. And so he said, I'll go with you. I'm thinking, a Klansman is going to come with me and be my Nighthawk against another Klansman. That's how much this guy liked me. I said, no, I can't have that. Because, I figured there'll be some tension. So I said, no. He goes, do you have a gun? I said, I'm not taking any gun. He goes to his car, he opens his trunk, he pulls out a Glock 17, and he hands it to me and says, take this with you. He goes, you can give it to me when you come back. I said, I'm not taking your gun. I give it back to him, right? And he says, whatever you do not take Mary. He says, Chester was this guy's name. He says, Chester does not want to see a black man with a white woman. I said, Mary is not my wife. She's not my girlfriend. She's my secretary. He said, it doesn't matter. He says, do not take her. I said, okay. He goes, but take somebody with you. I said, don't worry about it. He goes, call me when you come back. I said, all right. So I decided, I'm not take anybody. I went by myself. And there were 7 of them there. They didn't know I was black. And when I showed up, they freaked out. And they surrounded me, okay? And I stood there. And they did not make one move on me because I showed no fear. And then later, Chester went to jail. Ironically, he went to jail for assault with intent to murder a black man who had a white woman as a passenger in the car. So when he was in jail awaiting his trial to go to prison, I went to the jail and I visited with him. And I sat with him in the room. And he told me, he goes, Daryl, you know that day that you came out there and met me the first time? I said, yeah. He goes, we were afraid of you. I said, why were you afraid of me? And he said, because we thought you came there by yourself. So either you had people that we could not see, targeting us, because why would a black man come there by himself? We had 7 people, or you were just one crazy person. So he said, that's why we didn't make a move. So I was better going by myself than bringing somebody with me, because there would have been a fight.
And it doesn't make you feel physically sick, like when you know, like...
I mean, I've had fights before, and I've had threats. I get threats all the time. But, maybe one day something will happen, but let's hope not. I'm still here. All right, thank you all very much. I appreciate it.